Greg got the first one-on-one date of Katie's season, and we have all the details. Hey guys, welcome back to another Share News from Home. We are so excited to talk about Greg and Katie and this amazing date. But before we get into it, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. As always, I am your host, Fiona Zaring, joined by the wonderful Zachary Reality and Hiba Berry. You guys, it is just week 2, and this was quite the episode. There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of romance. But we're going to talk all things Greg and Katie because, of course, he did get the first one-on-one date, which is a huge deal. So we all fell in love with Greg last week when he got that first impression rose. And I feel like, listen, the bar was set pretty high for Greg this week. And he, at least in my opinion, exceeded expectations. Katie even said to him, like, listen, this is a big deal to get that first impression rose, then to get the first one-on-one. She told him point blank she sees him, being there for a long time, I think is how she put it. The guys were certainly pretty shocked to see Greg get to spend that extra time with Katie right away. What are your thoughts on all of this? Because she's painting a pretty clear picture to anyone that's paying attention. Zachary, how are you feeling?
Yeah, because usually we don't see the person who gets the first impression rose go on the first one-on-one date, because usually you're like, okay, I like this person, let me put them on the back burner. But Katie really wanted to explore her relationship with Greg pretty much immediately by giving him the first one-on-one date. And Greg stayed unproblematic the entire episode because there was a lot of drama in the episode, but Greg did not get involved in any of it. So yeah, he might be a threat, possibly a target for a lot of the guys, but he's staying uncontroversial. He's staying out of the drama. He's definitely a fan favorite with Katie and with the audience. And it seems like a lot of the guys in the house really like him. So I was super happy that he got the first one-on-one date. I am definitely falling for Greg just like Katie is. I'm going to go on this journey with Katie. I'm emotionally invested. And, I have feelings for Greg already, and I'm not afraid to admit them.
I love that. Hiba, do you agree?
Totally agree. And yeah, huge move to obviously get the one-on-one date right after getting the first impression. And I've always, Twitter loves Greg. We saw everyone also falling for him as well, just like Zachary, you just said. So I think all of America just really fell in love with him, as well as Katie. She hasn't said love yet, but she's definitely falling for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if she said she loved him soon. I don't think yet. I don't think they're there yet, but soon. I think it's bound to happen. But I think, yeah, they just get each other so much. And the date was, fun. They did an activity that, of course, Katie grew up doing, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. And they just related a lot with one another. They had fun. They had the deep conversation. So I think it'll be fun to explore how much deeper they can go as well. And yeah, the guys better watch out for Greg because, he's like killing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you both. They obviously went on a camping themed date. They made a tent. They made a toilet. They went fishing. I have to say, both Katie and Greg love the outdoors. It holds sentimental, reasoning, which of course we can get into. But just before we even dive into that, I was kind of expecting a flashier first date. They literally kind of stuck them out in the dirt. Did this surprise you guys at all? What were you expecting, Hiba?
I didn't even expect a flashy date, to be honest. I thought, they're out in this state. It doesn't seem like there's really much to do as far as, flashiness, but I think it's all about nature. I think that's what the focus might be of these dates. And Katie does seem to be the type that maybe isn't into the flashy type stuff. But I think she's just more low key and just wanted to do something that, she again did growing up, which is always camping and fishing and just being outdoors. And I feel like Greg was that perfect match to, experience that first date with. And I think, regardless, it was fun. There was definitely great moments. And I don't know, I feel like, again, Katie's just that relatable girl. She doesn't need, all the bells and whistles with all these fancy dates or anything like that. So I think it was just great to see them work with what they had at the time and then just kind of go with more of like a raw, authentic, kind of just more intimate type of setup.
Yeah, listen, Zachary, they were able to have fun and really progress their connection while literally sitting on a bucket toilet. What would you say that says about their connection? Because I feel like that's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I think that the theme of this season is low budget. We've been talking about how low budget her trailer has been for weeks. So I am not surprised. This was actually expected I know, on the first date, to have such a low budget first date and be camping and be in the grounds. They're also in New Mexico, so I don't know what is going on in New Mexico. I've never been there, but it seems like they're really in the middle of nowhere. But they're also catering to Katie as the Bachelorette. You know, she said she likes to go outdoors. This is her thing. She grew up camping and fishing. So Greg was the perfect person to go on this date because he grew up fishing as well. They both love the outdoors. And I think that no matter where you are, if you're with someone that you genuinely enjoy being with, it doesn't matter where you are or what flashy things you're doing. It's really just about who you're spending time with and the connection.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I couldn't agree with you more. I think those two really prove that if there's a connection to be had, they could have just been like sitting in an empty room, I feel like, and they would have really made progress because they really seem to have a strong bond going already. Let's get into the more serious side of the date, which was, of course, Katie opening up to Greg about losing her father back in 2012. Like we said, I mean, this date was really important to her because this is what she grew up doing. Her father is the one who introduced her to camping, you know, taught her how to do all of this stuff. And it really was important to her to sort of share with Greg that not only is this like a fun time, this is something that's really sentimental, right? This is something that's really personal to me. Hibbo, what were you thinking during this conversation they were having? Because they really went there.
Yeah, definitely. And it showed Greg that, Katie is, trying to get deep, getting in more into those deeper conversations. And she's opening up about her dad, which is a very vulnerable and private and intimate subject. So, this isn't something that she's going to go out and say to any guy. She specifically chose to tell Greg this and to share that in this environment of growing up, camping with her dad. So I think this was a really important and kind of critical moment because, again, she's not saying this just to anyone. She's saying it strictly to Greg. And I thought that was a huge telling moment. And it was great because, Greg was a great listener. He wasn't, of course, we know now that Greg, also lost his dad, but he just was there listening. He didn't interject. He didn't interrupt. He was there listening. And sometimes listening is the best thing to do. Sometimes you just need to hear someone out, especially when they're sharing something that's so deep. And I thought it was a great moment. And yeah, it was, sad to see her get emotional. But again, these conversations need to be had. We can't always just do, the surface level fun things. We have to get deep. She's trying to find a husband. So of course, these conversations had to have been had. So I think this was a very, very great moment.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
Zachary, if we really think about it, this is their first date, right? I mean, it feels to me like they have a bond that made Katie feel comfortable opening up to this with him, in this moment. And I don't know that that's, not a first date conversation, but it's not in every first date conversation, right? So I feel like there's something to be said about how comfortable she feels around Greg.
Yeah, I mean, she gave him the first impression rose, so she obviously felt something. And I feel like in this environment, they're almost forced to kind of talk about certain things just so they can get to know each other. Katie said she's here to find a husband. She has like 6 weeks of filming to find her husband. So I definitely think she has to be vulnerable and open herself up and set the tone for the guys to open themselves up. If they can see Katie be vulnerable and be raw, then they're going to give her that same energy back. So I'm glad that she was able to open up and that Greg was supportive and that was really there for her. She definitely picked the right guy for this date. And I really felt for her. I'm so fortunate to have both of my parents, but I really did feel for her and I got chills while watching the scene. It was amazing to see how vulnerable Katie is. And it just shows how down to earth and awesome she is to be so open. And I'm really loving her as a Bachelorette so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And let's talk about, I mean, you just raised such a good point. The more vulnerable and open, that Katie is, the easier it's going to be for the guys to sort of meet her at her level. And that certainly happened later in the date because during the dinner portion, Katie actually, was vulnerable once again. She shared that it was a little bit of a struggle to open up about her dad. Obviously, it's a really difficult subject. And she shared something with Greg that I thought was really sweet, which was that he, allowed her to sort of enjoy and celebrate these moments where she could sort of honor these memories with her father. And she hasn't always been able to do that. Grief is, of course, such a long process. But as she's talking about, her own struggles to open up, Greg met her there, opened up, shared his own story about losing his father. He got emotional. It was a beautiful moment. It was an emotional moment. And I feel like it really, to me, solidified Greg as a front runner. I see him Final Four. I mean, to be on that level of emotion and, confidence with the person you're sharing really, really deep stories with is not easy to do in the time period that these two have done it. I mean, I know you're such a fan of Greg Zachary, but do you really see him going all the way?
Absolutely. They have such a strong connection. And, he really let her have her moment during the day because he was dealing with the exact same thing. He's still upset that he lost his father and he didn't even mention it until nighttime, which really just shows how patient and caring and understanding he is, which is everything
Mhm.
Katie wants and needs in a guy. And their moment was so powerful. It wasn't surface level. It didn't feel overly edited like a lot of other scenes do on this show. It felt so raw and authentic, and the connection was so apparent between them two. I'm glad that he was able to get that off of his chest and cry it out because you can see how much he's been struggling with his dad who passed away. The one thing that really stuck out to me is when he said that his dad is never going to be able to meet the woman that he's going to marry. And that just kind of hit me. I don't know. I just felt really connected to Greg at that point, and I really appreciated him being so vulnerable. And I'm shipping these two. They both have a lot in common.
What are your thoughts, Hiba?
Oh, everything Zachary just said, and I think especially the part when you start crying together, I think that's when you know, like, okay, like there is a connection right here. They both had tears running down their faces, talking about a very similar situation, of course, both losing their dads. And I think not a lot of people can relate to that, especially at their age. And so I for sure think is gonna make it really far. I mean, who knows, maybe the farthest he might, take this thing home, be engaged to her at the end. But again, like once you start crying with the person, I think it's like kind of a done deal in a way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you both. And you guys, the first impression rose, especially in Bachelorette land, like there is a pretty long history of whoever gets that rose making it all the way till the end. So it's going to be very interesting to see where Greg and Katie's journey goes from here. Obviously, this was a pretty solid first date, at least in our opinion. You guys, we want to know your thoughts on Katie and Greg's one-on-one. Be sure to let us know down in the comments. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do. Make sure you ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future Katie updates. As always, I'm your host, Fiona Zaring. I was joined by the lovely Zachary Reality and Hiba Berry. If you want to come say hi, check out our socials. They're on the screen right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.